Hi, my name is Michaela Gaffney. Today we're going to be taking a look at Facebook's communication following the 2016 presidential election. Social media has done amazing things. It's changed the way political campaigns are run, it's changed the way that business is done, and it's done a lot for connecting people all over the world. Unfortunately, not everything social media has done has been positive. Consider the crisis after the 2016 presidential election, where news reports started coming out about Russian interference in our national elections, and somehow Facebook having a role in that. The information collected in this presentation will examine the effectiveness of Facebook's response to one of the greatest privacy breaches in the last decade. So, what did happen? According to the New York Times, Facebook users learned last spring that the company had compromised their privacy in its rush to expand, allowing access to the personal information of tens of millions of people to a political data firm linked to President Donald Trump. Russian hackers appear to be probing accounts of high-profile political officials to share information it illegally collected from the DNC. It didn't start there, however. Facebook has been under heat for years and years for allowing high public officials to violate their terms of service, things such as bigotry, things such as racism. These were questions that were happening well before Donald Trump was elected, and Mark Zuckerberg and Sarah Sanders had nothing to do with the decisions made on their platform. I mentioned Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg. Most people know these players. Mark Zuckerberg was the CEO of Facebook, and Sheryl Sandberg is the COO of Facebook, or Chief Operating Officer. Obviously, Russian hackers were involved in this scandal, doing the deeds, and campaign workers were involved by getting Facebook messages from Russian hackers. So Facebook finds out there's fake accounts. Facebook finds out there's fake news. What did Facebook do about it? Short answer is not much. Facebook sought to deflect blame and mask the extent of the problem. First of all, Facebook had blatant denial tactics after a period of silence. Mark Zuckerberg went so far as to say that fake news on Facebook was a crazy idea. After that, when independent studies came out and showed that these things were happening on the platform, Mark Zuckerberg sought to deflect and downplay the extent of these issues. In 2017, Mark Zuckerberg released the Propaganda Report, which was an attempt to clarify what was going on his platform. Bizarrely, the word Russia never showed up in that report once. Not only that, but when the scandal officially hit, Mark Zuckerberg said 50 million files were compromised on Facebook. After a while, and more independent studies, he changed that number to over 87 million files compromised. He also described the content on Facebook being a small amount of content that's fake news. He constantly sought to downplay the problem and the scope of the issue. Crisis communications theory states that we have to have responsibility as businesses when we make mistakes. Facebook sought to evade that responsibility consistently. A company is supposed to have preparative plans for when a crisis of communication hits. Unfortunately, Facebook couldn't well see this coming. I don't blame Facebook for not seeing this coming. It would be hard to plan for the complete infiltration of a national election. However, Facebook obviously had ongoing issues before this, and the lack of commitment of the CEO and COO to the privacy of their users has led them to this result. After Facebook initially denied, deflected, and downplayed their transgressions, they did finally practice the main theory of forgiveness, which is mortification. Mark Zuckerberg, excuse me there, guys. Mark Zuckerberg finally came out in 2018 and he said, "I'm sorry, Facebook is my project and I'm the CEO and I take full responsibility for what happened on my platform." The results of this election. The results of this communication crisis. It was the biggest privacy scandal of the decade. It resulted in Facebook having plummeting stocks, a loss of credibility, and a loss of consumers. Overall, Facebook had an extremely poor response. Let's see what we can learn from them. So what can we learn from Facebook? I think the number one takeaway here is that active engagement with your company is essential to maintaining a good handle on the information. In Facebook's case, top executives weren't even involved or aware of some of the decisions the company was making. Once a crisis hit, employees were simply scrambling to find the correct information, let alone implementing positive communication restoration strategies. Once the facts were collected, Facebook failed to communicate clearly to the public and make positive restorations. In conclusion, either executives at Facebook blatantly lied about the scope of the problem, or executives were so far removed from the security aspect of their jobs that they genuinely had no idea what was going on in their platform. In either case, the responses following these events have only solidified the stereotype of Facebook being known as a breeding ground for the misinformed and the willfully ignorant. Thank you for listening.